Hi everyone, it's Mike Talk at another episode. This is James Coe.
And Will, we're here to talk today about one of our good friends. We're going to talk with her because she just went back to Taiwan. And as you may know, Taiwan has very low COVID infection rates. And we wanted to figure out if you were to enter Taiwan, what happens?
Yeah, I work in Canada right now, and things are, not bad, and we're under some sort of control. But we've always been curious as to how other countries are doing it. U.S. is doing it their way, U.K. is doing it their way, and Singapore is doing it their way. And Taiwan seems to have gotten it right, and their numbers are pretty good.
Yeah. So, we're going to go through, I guess, some of her experiences when she first went to the airport, what it was like being quarantined in Taiwan. We're going to see some nice food that she got to eat. And we're really grateful for Betty, our old middle school friend, for sharing her experiences.
Yeah. All right. Well, stay tuned, guys.
Let's go.
All right. Hi, everybody. This is Mike Talk. I'm James Coe, and we have Will Shang here, and we're here with Betty. Will, do you want to do a little bit of introduction for us?
Yeah, Betty is a very old high school friend, and she's graciously agreed to chat with us. We're talking to Betty today about Taiwan, and she just arrived there, so going through the process of how she did that and all that good stuff, because we want to understand how things are being done halfway around the world. So welcome, Betty, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, so...
Sure, it's nice to be here.
Why don't we get started? So tell us your story. You flew back to Taiwan recently, and how did you make that decision? Were you scared about flying? Were you worried about the plane or anything like that?
Yeah, so I came to Taiwan about a week ago, and I had started thinking about it probably back in like June, because life is pretty much normal here. They didn't really shut down schools, people still take the subway, and it's just everything's kind of business as usual. And I was worried because people were giving me, horror stories about planes and how they were like packed, and like domestic flights at least. And I was a little bit nervous about what would happen if I flew halfway around the world, and then there were like restrictions about going back and I wouldn't be able to return. And then also, I'm currently in a 2-week mandatory quarantine. So I was also thinking about how I didn't know if I was worth it. So it was kind of a last minute decision. Like I literally booked this hotel like a week before I was coming because I was just kind of dragging my feet.
Mm-hmm. Wow, I think a lot of people are worried about, when you get on the plane, if you sit next to people, if they're contagious, what happens, right? So was your plane packed, or what was that like?
So it was like one of those huge planes that, do that continental or like across the world flights. And there was very, very few people on my flight. I had the entire row, so like 9 seats.
Wow.
That's like my dream.
Three. Yeah. The closest person to me was 2 or 3 rows behind me.
Yeah.
And there was like some other people on the other side of the plane. And then maybe like total, probably like, I wouldn't say more than 40 passengers on the entire plane. That probably holds like hundreds of people.
That's great. Did you get free upgrades or anything like that?
No, I didn't. But actually, it worked out because let's say I went to like economy plus, you can't raise the handlebars
right.
on those seats because those are kind of these little these little
it's hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So the fact that I was in economy, I could lift both handlebars and just lie down. Like I was flat for like, it's a 15-hour flight. I was flat for like 12 hours. Like
That's
I just
awesome.
That's sweet.
It actually worked out, and there was some sort of change in service. Like usually they give you like options for food, but they just literally just handed me a tray. It was like, this is your food.
Right.
It was like limited drinks and sort of like the beverages and stuff like that was limited, and service was kind of limited. But it was just like a normal plane ride, other than the fact that you were wearing a face mask the whole time, and all the flight attendants were like head to toe in like PPE.
Oh,
wow.
No kidding! Wow.
The entire flight. I actually felt like really bad for them. Like the flight attendants, some of them were like had double masks on, like they had an N95 plus like the disposable surgical mask.
Yeah.
And then they were wearing gloves. Like some of them had goggles, nice. And so like it's nice to see that the airline is protecting their employees.
That's pretty impressive. Welcome to my world. That's what I
Right.
do.
Exactly. Yeah. But like they had the gowns, the gloves. So it's nice to
Wow.
see that they're being protected, but also, I mean, it's kind of hard to wear all of that for like 15 hours, you know?
Yeah.
It is, and it's also interesting, right? Because the airlines keep coming back and telling us, hey, we have filtration in the cabins, so don't worry about the airborne, I guess, coronavirus that may be spreading. But at the same time, you see people wearing full head-to-toe PPEs. So it's hard to, I don't know. For me, at least, I look at that and I'm like, where's the line here, right? It's almost a risk tolerance you got to take. Is it okay flying? I
It
think
is.
it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Definitely risk tolerance. Like I had friends that were like, you know, wear a face mask, wear a face shield, wear a diaper because, you know, don't go to the bathroom, don't touch anything.
For
And I'm
15
just like,
hours? Yeah.
That's an
I'm
intense.
gonna go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think.
But I know people who, like, my cousin flew back from Japan because she was in graduate school there. And, like, the flight, granted, is like 3.5 hours. She wore a diaper. Like, she didn't go to the bathroom.
Gosh.
And, like, there was a family on my flight, a family of 4, and they had, like, you know, granted, they had 2 little kids. Like, they sat down. The dad pulled out this like giant bag, and from the bag, he literally pulled out what looked like a giant roll of Saran wrap, and they proceeded to wrap up the entire seat, all the seats.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh my God, like
That's
pretty intense.
Their, you know, risk tolerance. I just, you know, brought some Clorox wipes, wiped everything down, my
Right.
seats, the headrest, like anything I was going to touch.
Yeah.
I took off my face shield. I had one at the beginning because I was just like, I don't know, like if there's a lot of people, but there's no people, so I only wore the face mask.
Yeah, but you know, if everybody's wearing a mask, right? I think you're fine. Like if everybody's wearing a mask, and you know, if as long as nobody's taking them off and coughing around in the air, it should be okay. Like in theory, right? As long as you're not, you know, licking the handlebars or touching your face all the time. You know,
Right.
that's
Right.
Yeah.
And I did go to the bathroom. I used hand sanitizer. I like used paper towel. Like I didn't like, touch anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone has like different risk tolerance.
Yeah, the risk tolerance is different, but very interesting. So, you know, I think the last time I flew was in March for work. And when I came back to Canada, I'm the Nexus holder, so you go through a Nexus line and there's a question there saying, you know, have you been to Wuhan in the last 14 days? Yes, no answer, right? I answered no, and then you just kind of keep moving. I think if you answer yes, they ask a few additional questions, like, do you have a fever? And then you're kind of, you know, moved along, right? What was your experience when you landed in Taiwan?
So I had heard all these stories about like how they like subjected you to like all these tests. You had to wait at the airport. They'd like put you in like an isolation chamber, like all this like stuff. And I was just like really prepared to like spend hours at the airport. But I guess a lot of the people that came to Taiwan did so during like the peak of things, like in March and April. So they had a very different experience. My experience was actually pretty straightforward. When I landed at the airport, I had to buy a local SIM card. I had to have like a local Taiwan number. And so this is so that they can call me for the next 14 days and reach me. And then also I had to fill out this form. It's like a health declaration form and just indicate whether or not I had experienced symptoms in the last week, and then whether I had been around people who had been confirmed with COVID. And then if I didn't have anything, like I was considered like low risk. And so they just kind of like let me through. And then I went through immigration the same. They didn't really ask me any questions about that. So there's like an immigration portion and then like the health check portion, and both were just pretty seamless. Like they were just letting people through. I imagine there's a secondary screening if like you did mention that you like had a fever or whatever, but I didn't. And then then I went to get a taxi to go to my quarantine hotel. And then I had to fill out another form so that they could trace me, and also linked my like file, I guess, to the taxi driver in case like something happened to the taxi driver in the next 14 days. They could,
no
kind
kidding.
Of like contact tracing.
Yeah.
And then they sprayed down my luggage, sprayed me down.
This is at the hotel.
Like all over. And then I got in the quarantine taxi and the guy drove me straight
So
to
they use the fogger or something like that, like just sprayed you down with like disinfectant.
Yeah, they probably like sprayed me down with like Lysol or something. I don't know.
That is so interesting.
Alcohol, I'm not sure. It was just like, you know, there's like a spray bottle, everything was sprayed. And he drove me to the hotel. The government covers a portion of the taxi ride also. because I guess they don't want, because there's cheaper options that you take public transportation or some bus, but they prefer if people are sort of like separated. So to encourage that, they cover a portion of the taxi ride.
Smart.
So that was nice. And then when I got to the hotel, I had to go through a separate entrance. So he had to drive me down to the basement, and they had like sectioned off one of the elevators. And so there was like floor to ceiling plastic. There was like no way you could like get out into another part of the hotel. And I just like, she did a temperature check. She just verified some information with me, and then she sent me into the elevator and was like, your room is like 1505 or whatever. The door's open, you know, like see you in 15 days. And then I laughed because, you know, I was just like, haha. And then she laughed too, because I don't think she realized that. I think she realized that I didn't realize that she was dead serious. Like, I was not going to see another person for 15 days. And so here I am on day 8, and I'm not seeing a real live person in the flesh.
That's crazy. So do they use like any apps or anything like that for the contact tracing, or is it purely just like phone calls and texts and?
So there's Line, you know, Line, it's like like a common app that they use in Taiwan. And I did get a link indicating that they texted me a link saying like, hey, if you have Line, you can sign up for Line. And this is where like they would track because I have to take my temperature every day. So they give me a thermometer, and I have to take my temperature every day and then report my temperature into the app. So I did that. And then also they just like verify whether or not I have symptoms. I just respond. It's all electronic, but it's just very straightforward. And then my quarantine manager has access to all of that. Like he can see my temperature every day, and like he can see like any information that I have put in there. Like if I was like, I have symptoms, he could see that right away.
Right. Is it a trust basis, or do you like take a picture of the temperature monitor to show what the temperature actually is? It's a trusting.
Type it in.
You type it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's very interesting though. I mean, we don't have that in Toronto. There's no quarantine. So when you're booking a hotel, is there only a certain number of hotels that you can book if you're flying into Taiwan?
Yeah, so they give you a list of hotels. So you can quarantine at home.
Oh.
Okay.
There's just certain requirements, like you have to have a separate room with a separate bathroom. Like no one else in your family is allowed to use that bathroom. So you have to have like an ensuite, basically.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And then also you can't have anybody under the age of 6 or over the age of 65 in your household.
Gotcha.
Okay.
So if you meet those, and then there's like some other requirements, but like those two are the main ones, and if you can meet those requirements, then you can quarantine at home. So like my cousin, when she came back from Japan, my aunt like gave her like a section of like, she like let her use one of the guest rooms or whatever in the house, and she just was like, she left meals outside her door and everything like that. So because like the idea is like she can't leave the room, right? Right.
So like you right now, you can't leave the hotel room essentially, right?
No, like so the other day they delivered the wrong meal. Like they gave me my neighbor's meal, and I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna eat this, so because I had already eaten, and so I left my room and I like walked like 3 meters and like put it on his tray, and then I was like, oh my god, I like walked out of my like, you know, like small hotel room, because I can open the door three times a day to like get my food, right? But then I had to like go out into the hallway and like walk 3 meters. And I was just like, oh my god, like I hope they don't know that like I'm doing this. I was like looking around for like security cameras.
Oh my goodness,
that's crazy. So in terms of food, do you do you like, is it covered by? Do you have to pay for the food, or how does it work? And is it something you order through a list, or?
Yeah, so I'm paying for the hotel. That's a question that I got a lot. Like I got asked a lot. Because I like posted some stories on Instagram, and people were like, are you paying for this? And I was like, yes, I am. The government can provide a small subsidy if you apply, but it's not a lot. I think the idea is just that, you know, I kind of chose to come here. So it's like kind of up to me.
Fair enough. Right.
You know, if you went on vacation or whatever, like you're paying for your own costs, right? So my hotel happens to have food. It's included in the room price. And so it's 3 meals. Because I'm staying at a Marriott chain hotel, so they have a restaurant downstairs.
Okay.
So I can pick the menu. I can look through the menu
Right.
of the
You're basically
restaurant.
ordering room service then.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get
Yeah,
a credit, and then like I can spend up to like a certain amount every meal, and
Okay.
so I just
Yeah.
try to stay within that price. But there are hotels where there's no meals, and then it's like cheaper. And then there's like there's some hotels, like another friend actually, she started quarantine the same day as me, and she's like in a hotel like in like the middle of the city, like Taipei, and she's complaining about how like her food was like terrible.
Really?
So yeah, but you can friends and family can like deliver stuff to you, and you can also order Uber Eats. So like she's getting her parents to like bring her food, and also like she's ordering stuff on Uber. So
Okay, so that kind of works. And then the hotel will just take it from the door of the hotel to the individual's hotel room. Is that how they do it?
At the front desk, and then
Got it.
someone has to bring it up and give it to me.
That's pretty cool. That's actually really neat. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, it's very like it's stringent. Like I like that. I mean, it's something that I feel other countries should definitely learn about.
Yeah.
I know that Korea does something very similar as well. Like they have a mandatory quarantine, and there's like this situation where like you can't leave and whatnot. But I know that, obviously because tourism is down, because like nobody that is not a Taiwanese citizen can come to Taiwan right now. So obviously tourists are not coming. So hotels are obviously suffering. So a lot of them have decided to convert to quarantine hotels for like returning citizens, or like at least partially some of the hotel, like the bigger hotels, maybe like a few floors.
Right.
People. But otherwise, like, yeah, things are just normal here. Like, like everyone's kind of doing everything. Like cousins are still going to work every day, taking the subway, like, eating in restaurants and like going to the gym and stuff like that.
Wow. So, but I assume people are wearing masks, right?
To in a week.
Oh, there you go. There you go. But people are still wearing masks when they're doing these things, I assume, in Taiwan?
Yeah, so yeah, you have to wear masks. People are pretty cooperative with that here, because I think they're used to it, and also just like from the SARS epidemic,
they went through it
in 2003, like they know it's like a thing. And I think just in like Asian cultures in general, like masks are not seen as like an impingement on their personal freedoms. Like it's more like a consideration thing. Like if you're like, let's say I have a cold and I'm like taking the subway, I would wear a mask because I don't want to get other people sick.
That's
right.
So that's kind of how it is. And then also like for certain places, like they will take your temperature before you go in to like a store or something. Like,
gotcha.
So I mean, like, if it seems like the countries that are taking a lot of these precautions, forcing people to wear masks, are the ones that have lower numbers, and I don't know. Like, it seems like U.S. Maybe you can take a hint. I don't want to get into that.
No, I think there are many. Let's say there are many factors, right? And the difference in the U.S. is, right, I think they're going state by state. But the problem is, if you do, let's say, lock down New York, it doesn't really make any difference if everyone in New Jersey can cross the border and come over, right?
Yeah, of course. It's got to be a country thing, right? It's not going to
have
be
a national strategy,
thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's. I mean, I'm glad Canada is starting to implement the masks a little bit more now, but I talked to a lot of patients of mine and even staff, and they're like, "What's the big deal with masks? Just wear the damn thing, right?"
Yeah. But I think we're a long way away. Today I went to my office downtown, and usually we have about 300-400 people, and in the office we had 2 folks, right? And that's I think a lot of companies. So we're not at Taiwan's level. We're not back to business. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. What was the number there? Like, Betty, do you remember? Do you know?
I think there hasn't been any community transmissions in the last like 2 months. And like new cases reported are, I think, just like imported cases. I think the death toll as of now is like 7 for the whole country.
Wow.
Yeah, like there's obviously like differences within the United States and Taiwan. Like the population of Taiwan is like 24 million, and it's an island, whereas the United States is like 330 million, and it's huge, and there's a lot of different regions and stuff like that. So I think it's like you said, it's like much harder to implement in the United States. But I think that there are some states like New Jersey, Connecticut, and New York.
New York, yeah.
Like kind of tri-state, the three governors try to, you know, kind of come together and like try to implement the same rules. So it's not like, oh, in New York, I can't eat in a restaurant, so I'm going to like drive to Connecticut and eat in a restaurant, you know?
Right.
So they try to kind of like band together to kind of create like a
zone.
same set of rules.
Yeah.
But like you said, it is very hard because you can just drive from like Pennsylvania, which is right next to New Jersey. You could just drive from Pennsylvania to New Jersey or vice versa, right? And it's like an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
It's definitely hard. Yeah.
Would you consider working from home from Taiwan? Do you think that's doable?
So luckily right now I'm not working.
Yeah.
And I don't have to until September.
Right.
So that definitely makes it easier. I think it's going to be difficult to work, you know, East Coast hours.
From Taipei, yeah.
Yeah.
And I've had some friends who are like, oh, I really want to come back, but like, I don't want to work, you know, East Coast or even Pacific time hours, California, right? Which is it's like 15 hours time difference.
Yeah, which is even worse, yeah.
So it depends on the flexibility, I think. Like I do have other friends who have been here since March and April, and they're like, you know, they've somehow managed to work something out with their teams.
Yeah.
You know, where they only have like, I guess like early-ish morning meetings, like 9 p.m. here, 9 a.m. for them.
Right.
So it's doable. I don't know if I'd want to do that.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, I do plan on leaving at the end of the summer to go back to the United States, but you know.
Right. It's going to be really interesting, Betty, when you go back, because then you're going to see how's the U.S. handling this, right? Are they going to do contact tracing? Are they going to quarantine you? And anyway, I think that difference will be very telling.
Well, at this phase, I mean, it looks like if they want to get back to where, you know, where they should be, or where they were a couple like weeks or even a month ago, right? It's going to take a lot more effort because the numbers have spiked so much, right? And you know, just looking at Canada, right, how much it took to even get to where we are, like Toronto, for example, to get to 100, you know, cases a day, you know, that took, you know, quite a lot. And whereas the U.S., there seems to be no control whatsoever.
James, right? some may say that's fake news. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I'm just saying, like, you know, to me, it's gonna take a lot more to get back, and I feel like, again, I don't want to get into politics. I mean, that's what I feel like.
Yeah.
But I'm not so sure about what's going on in Canada in terms of, I just hear like from my parents, like, oh, like Toronto, this, that, whatever. But like, it almost feels like it's region specific. Like if I'm flying back right now, I'm flying back to New York. I'm not like flying to Florida, you know? And so that doesn't impact me so much. Like,
it's completely region specifics, because when I flew at the end of February to San Fran, and on my flight, everyone was wearing a mask, and people were wiping everything down, right? And at this point, I don't think I was as aware. I wasn't wearing a mask, right? But if you go to Florida, different story. So you can't view anything as, I guess, holistic or monolithic. You gotta look at it by region. But even Toronto, you see differences. Like around where we live, like Bayview Village, very good. People are all wearing masks. People are very careful. You go to some other areas, not so much. Yeah, no,
for sure. And yeah, definitely. I feel like, well, right now, I think it's a lot of it. It's the migrant workers, right? They're getting cases that are
in Canada, you mean?
Yeah, in the Windsor region, but
where are they coming from?
I have a feeling. I think it's Mexico.
It's Southern America,
Ecuador,
Mexico, and some from Brazil. Brazil's doing really badly, right?
Yeah.
So,
oh my gosh, Brazil,
So they're in the race with the U.S.
Not one you want to win, and their president got it. Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, it's really not good.
But I'm so happy for you, Betty, that you got to travel and go back to Taiwan. That's really neat.
Yeah, I have not gone back in the longest time.
I'm literally like, everyone's like, oh, how's your quarantine going? And I was like, honestly, like, because there's an end in sight, it's like, okay, you know, like whatever, I just have to endure this, you know, 14-day, actually it's 15 days, 15-day quarantine.
15 days,
yeah. But then like back in like March and April, when they were putting in place like social distancing and quarantine, it was just like, there was no end in sight. So it was very much just like, okay, we're just doing this thing, but it's just like, when is it going to end? And
Yeah.
This is definitely like, I'm not saying it's like good, but it's like better.
Because you know it's going to end in a couple of days. Yeah.
I know it's like on the other end of it. Like,
Yeah.
see the light at the end of the tunnel, you know. Like,
Are you able to Skype with friends and stuff like that, so you're not, talking to a volleyball or anything like that?
Yeah, people have been very nice. They're like, oh, if you get bored, like we can FaceTime, like we can Skype or like Zoom or whatever. Because they knew that, I had to spend like 14 days kind of like talking to myself.
Does the government provide anything to entertain you while you're there in the hotel, or is it just like TV?
So they did send me this like link for this thing called like Line TV, where it's just like they have like all these like shows and stuff like that usually you have to pay a premium for, or like you have to get like like you have to get a subscription for. So they gave it to me for free during my stay, and then they gave me like subscription to like, I guess like like a Spotify Plus type of thing, like Line Music.
Right.
I have binged a few shows, kind of refresh my Mandarin. So when I get released into the wild again, I can like get myself around and like speak.
I'm sure you'd be fine.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice that the government thought about that, right? Because quarantine, if you're alone and you're not able to call people, that could be stressful. That could be mentally draining. So at least you can binge shows. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like I've talked to other people, and like they've had like family members or other people like do quarantine, and they're just like, oh, it's tough, like especially if like if you're not so like into technology, or you don't really like watching TV, but I do think that some people are working as well,
right,
like maybe business or whatever, and so like that kind of structures your day.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's really helpful. Thanks, Betty, for sharing those thoughts with us.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't have any other questions. James?
No, I'm good. That was really amazing, and I think it's an insight to what other countries are doing, and hopefully it helps spread the word a little bit to other countries.
Absolutely.